We all probably had a night shift at some point in our life, and many who regularly have had them for years. It goes without saying that they are heroes who give us convenience and comfort in the dead of night when we have late night travels or any other matter. Here, our protagonist has a midnight shift where things become even more challenging and difficult than they need to be, as he becomes the target of shape-shifting doppelgangers and entities. Arriving at work, going to the break room, where the instructions are pinned on the notice board, we read how our duty is to mop up the floor of any blood and get rid of limbs and dispose of them into the trash bags, which can be found in the storage room. This already sounds sussy and raises the question if this convenience store is something more than providing convenience. Reading a newspaper from a popular news outlet, we learn doppelgangers are a recurring problem in the United States who have started ravaging the states and cities throughout the night. As this has become a major concern, the authorities have advised whenever encountering strangers, they should be questioned and have their IDs and personal details checked in order to differentiate them to doppelgangers. It goes without saying that this would lead to chaos, with people losing their trust between each other and always on the edge that there is a hostile doppelganger waiting to trick and kill people. As this night shifter gets busy starting to get rid of the limbs which are found in the storage room, as if left over from the shift before, he comes across signs all over the building about a red spider that it can't see and it can't die, and that it is an entity that should be praised. After restocking items in the shelves, the protagonist reads the instruction on how to interact with the customers. Each customer must be examined through being asked 5 questions. If their appearance or parts of their story seems off, the protagonist can determine if they are human or not. If suspected of not being a human and being a doppelganger, the protagonist can withdraw the gun from under the counter and shoot the suspected customer. That is when their bodies must be disposed of into the trash and the floor being mopped. At this point, it is safer not to run a convenience store anymore, as it is very dangerous. Or at least, the counter should be fortified to keep the cashier safe. But I guess the big corporate bosses don't care about the cashiers as much as they should. The first visitor of the night is Clyde Dawson, who seems to be the sheriff of the town. He welcomes the protagonist to his new job, telling him honestly that this is known as the graveyard shift, as the doppelgangers tend to be visiting the store during nighttime, with many of the previous night shifters having died. Regardless, he tells him not to worry and goes on, giving him a demonstration of how to interact with the customers and how to check on them if they are doppelgangers or not. He provides his ID and tells the new recruit to run it on the computer. The computer system would allow the IDs to be scanned, providing information such as date of birth, occupation, typical appearance, and the life or death status. Through the computer, we learn that the story of the game takes place in 1993, which would be over 2 decades ago. The sheriff bids the protagonist good luck and leaves the store. Soon enough, we get another visitor dressed in a hospital scrub. She provides her ID and introduces herself as Bunny McCree, being a nurse and working long shifts. She keeps her head shaved and often wears her scrub and glasses. Tonight she is not wearing them, as she explains that she took them off just before coming to the store. As she checks out and seems to be a real human, the next customer soon arrives. He looks around for a while and then comes to the counter, being fidgety and in a rush. He provides his ID, saying that he needs to leave quickly. Looking at his ID, we see a poorly makeshift ID written on a torn piece of paper, where he introduces himself as Nathan Calloway. Putting that name into the computer system, it suggests that the person with this name is actually deceased, proving that this person standing right in front of the protagonist is a doppelganger and not a real human. The protagonist, getting terrified, remembers the instructions and takes out the gun from under the counter and shoots the entity. Just after one single shot, the doppelganger disintegrates into pieces, which leads to the protagonist cleaning up after him, taking the limbs and then mopping the floor. As he goes out to dispose of his limbs, he sees a figure standing in the distance, deep in the woods surrounding the store, staring at the protagonist. Being terrified that this might be a hostile doppelganger, and as he doesn't even have a gun with him, the protagonist goes back into the store quickly. Soon after, another customer walks in, being a tall lady with a ponytail. She provides her ID to the cashier, having the name Julietta Granger. She explains that she has been a flight attendant for 3 years, but as we scan her ID, it shows that she is a plumber and often dirty with work clothes. This clearly shows to be a different person, with the entity in front of us just having the face of the person on the ID. Shooting this entity as well and cleaning up their remains, the delivery soon arrives when we need to open the loading bay at the back to let the truck in to get the new supplies. After getting some supplies, the protagonist gets a strange phone call. On the line, he hears a man in distress telling him that he has just broken down right outside the convenience store, hoping the protagonist can go out and help him out. Maybe he is out of fuel, or maybe he requires some sort of mechanical help. Either way, the protagonist goes out with his flashlight ready to lend a hand. As he approaches the car, which is only a short distance from the store, an entity looking like a man jumps out of the car and runs after the protagonist. The protagonist in fear runs back to the store and hides in a place, hoping that this entity won't find him. After a short while, the doppelganger loses interest and leaves the store in order to hunt down other humans. It is a little baffling how this world is overtaken by these doppelgangers who seem to appear at night and terrorize any bystanders. And yet we see so many customers walking around without a care in the world, as if this hostile entity didn't just chase after us frantically. If anything, people should avoid going out at night and should be armed to the teeth to protect themselves. But that would have its own side effects, as anyone could shoot anyone they deem suspicious or strange, with people killing each other. After a short while, the protagonist catching his breath, a new customer soon arrives. He is called Kevin and provides his ID, saying that he needs to head back on the road. Running his ID on the system, he seems to fully match his ID, being professionally dressed and working in an insurance company. Just before closing, the final customer enters, being a NET agent, which stands for Non-Human Eradication Task Force. Just like many enforcement agencies and groups with power, Ryan, the net agent, doesn't have any sense of humor and seems agitated. He is on edge and has a bad attitude, as if ready to attack someone, rushing the protagonist to hurry up even though he is performing his tasks for checking for doppelgangers as advised by the government. Ryan Holt seems to match his ID, and the protagonist wishes him a good night after serving him. The night comes to an end and the protagonist is left with cleaning up and closing for the night. He then goes to catch the night bus to go back home. Of course, just to get back the next night. Coming back the next day, we have a new piece of newspaper on the notice board. The article is about a new radical religious group who advocates for total replacement of humans by the doppelgangers. They call themselves the Assimilation Order. I don't know what their end game is, but whatever it is, it would mean that they have to get replaced themselves as they are not human, which seemingly means death. So, if anything, they seem to be part of a cult or an order, and being complete lunatics. We then get the first customer of the night, being called Roger Conroy. He seems to be drunk and an elderly who has a hiccup and keeps on speaking in a provocative, slurred way. Unfortunately, his ID matches and he seems to be a human as well. So we bid him farewell and tell him to stay off the booze. Soon after, we get another customer coming in who provides an ID which clearly depicts a different person with different ethnical background. Examining the ID and comparing the image, we ask about the appearance. The person standing right in front of us gives us a very unhuman response on how she went through puberty since the camera captured her on her ID photo. So we tell her that she doesn't need to say anything else anymore, and we let her meet another bullet from the gun provided to us. Soon after, we meet someone called Tommy Delgado, another customer coming in. He is not wearing any top and tells us that he is picking something up for his sister, Catherine. We ask him why he is topless when he answers that it is hot outside and he just quickly wanted to pick something up from the store. All of his answers seem fine and human, when all of a sudden, the protagonist thinks about something off about him. He inputs the name of his sister into the system, Catherine Delgado, when it unveils something sinister that this person is actually deceased The sister has died. Asking Tommy about his sister, he answers that his sister is just at home waiting for him. This unveils that this is a very smart doppelganger who has studied the real person very well. Killing this cunning doppelganger, we get the real Tommy walk into the store all of a sudden. He is identical to the doppelganger and even being topless. The way they speak and the tone of the voice is identical, which shows the scary reality of how advanced these doppelgangers truly are. The real Tommy even explains how he feels like he is being watched and that the cashier should be careful as the doppelgangers are everywhere. So this shows us how the doppelganger has been carefully studying Tommy from afar, taking his identity. Horrified to what he is seeing, the protagonist doesn't take any chances and examines him carefully. After being convinced that he is a human, he serves him and lets him go. We then see Clyde come to the store. He displays his respect for the protagonist, saying how much he appreciates his courage for taking the night shift, as it is equally as dangerous as the job of the sheriff. He takes some items and wishes the protagonist good luck and leaves the store. It doesn't even take seconds when we hear Clyde from the outside screaming at someone and telling them to stop before opening fire on them. When we hear the heart-wrenching sound of a body getting torn apart, we see how it was a doppelganger who killed the sheriff, an entity that has not yet taken any human form, being in its original shape. It is truly horrifying, being a tall entity with sharp teeth and a body like cracked clay. The entity provides us with Clyde's ID, clear that it will soon take Clyde's shape and identity. This would be very dangerous, as he could be in the law enforcement and cause a lot of death and suffering. We can let this entity go or kill him, but either way, we get the same outcome. If we kill it, we get a message that we have provoked the entity and we should hide within 60 seconds and board up the store's entryways. And if we let it go, the message says that we let a creature go, which will now come and get us. As it turns out, we get the large red spider coming into the store, breaking through the boarded up doors, the same spider that was drawn on the walls, which some people praised instead of fearing and trying to get rid of. This entity roams around for a little while and soon leaves, which then allows us to take a short respite. In the outside, we see the entity that was deep in the woods staring at us, slowly getting closer and closer to the store, just standing still and staring. On closer inspection, it looks similar to an entity, being formless, who seems to be observing the cashier to take his form and shape, and maybe the way he speaks and moves. We let this entity be, as it isn't really posing any danger to us as of yet, and get on with the rest of the job, cleaning the store and then getting to the bus before we miss it. The protagonist seems to be a typical Gen Z who just wants the ends meet, paying his overpriced rent and afford a few eggs maybe. So the biggest fear that he has is not the monsters that he faces on the daily, but the economy and the financial problems, and that is why he is willing to risk his life to get some minimum wage in order to survive. And that's it for this video, folks. This was just a demo, but the game has some potential. Maybe if it will get randomized customers actually and different outcomes based on our decisions, rather than the same outcome but different texts. Either way, have a great day and I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.